Okay, I was watching something in the news the other day, and it was talking about changing the voting age, saying how we should like
To
allow
16, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It's changing, making it younger, changing the age so young people can vote. It said below 18, but I don't know if I'm guessing 16. So
Well, you're not going to have a bunch of 10-year-olds flipping going
running in.
like, can I get some free Freddos before lunch or whatever every day? And Theresa May's like, yeah, that's the new policy. You can have as many Freddos as you want before lunchtime.
Theresa May revolutionizes the.
Jeremy Corbyn just comes in and he's like, nah, forget the Freddos, mate. You can have like the
Walkers.
as many like Walker's crisps, mate. Like any flavour you want, as many bags as you want.
The battle of snacks.
And then you got all the adults being like, "How are we going to pay for this? How is it? How are we going to pay for this with our taxes and shit?" So no, I think it will be 16
getting paid in crisps.
Obviously, yeah. Some 16-year-olds obviously pay tax or whatever as well. So
I'm for it. I'm for it.
I'm more sort of half and half, but I would say I veer more in the no to that. I feel like at the age of 16, 17, you're kind of inhabiting a different world than the world that adults inhabit. I wouldn't say all 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, but I'd just say a majority of them, because a lot of them are at school still, living with their parents. They haven't really got a taste for the wider world. They haven't gone travelling. They're not like in a career. They're not, so their world still kind of revolves around that world of like my friends, my school, my social media. So I just don't know if they're clued up enough, or I wouldn't even say clued up, because kids are more clued up now because of social media. I would say more mature. I think at that age you still have a ton of hormones running around your body. I just don't know if you're sensible enough and mature enough to vote. And I know the response will be, yeah, but a lot of adults aren't either, and I would agree with that. But I would say they're, as a whole, adults are more qualified than 16 and 17-year-olds to make
because
a decision on how the country is
being run. I agree with you in that one, because to the people that say, and there's a lot of adults that aren't either, I would say that's a bit embarrassing then. When you get a 16-year-old that knows the world around them and stuff like that, and they know enough about politics, I'm like, rah, you know, like, even though you've had to be worrying about GCSEs, girlfriend, boyfriend, social media problems, and education, and maybe you don't mess around with all that stuff. Maybe you do. Maybe you do just like study your books and you know about the world that you were living in and your country and what's going on. Oh, that's cool, and I'm surprised. Like, I'm surprised because I don't see a lot of people that do. But for the woman that does, or the man that does, and he's like 30 odd, I'm like, that's a bit embarrassing that you've been like out the education system in the real world for how long now, and you don't know anything about the world around you. Or like, I'm not saying like you need to know every single,
but just have a general idea.
But just have a general gist of what's going on. I feel like that's when it gets a bit like, come on, man, that's a bit more embarrassing than like, that's not something you should be proud of. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, because not to like toot my own horn too much, but I feel like you represent the former and I represent the latter, in the sense that I feel like I was clued up in terms of politics quite young, probably from the ages of like 17, 18, that age, whereas you were a bit more of a late bloomer. I'd say the last couple of years you've become a lot more politically engaged. But yeah, you're right, like obviously you're still only in your mid-20s, but if you're at 30 and you have no idea what's going on, it's a bit like, you don't need a doctorate to know who Donald Trump is or who Theresa May is, or do you know what I mean? Just have a general sense of what they're up to. But yeah, going back to like what you were kind of touching on, I'm not trying to say that no 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds could, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that age who are actually a lot more mature than a lot of people my age, you know what I mean? But I'm just talking in proportions at the end of the day, and there's just a higher proportion of 16, 17-year-olds who just aren't mature enough to make that decision, I don't think. One of the things that was kind of mentioned was, would have it made a difference in the Brexit vote? Because they're saying that, like, some people are saying, yeah, but if 16, 18-year-olds had been allowed to vote, that would have made all the difference. But looking into it, apparently, if every 16 and 17-year-old had voted, that still wouldn't have been enough to change the Brexit vote. So I thought I'd just throw that out there.
Okay, cool.
Maybe not quite relevant.
Cool. Yeah, it's very relevant. No, that's wrong. It's very relevant. I'm getting gas now. No, basically, what I was going to say is that, like,
that really, like, fueled your fire right
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Because basically, what it is you've got. Let's look at this from a timeline perspective, like chronological. From the ages of, say, let's say, I won't say age, sorry. From the school years of year 7 to year 11, you're in this bubble of school of education. Fair enough. You only get probably like, I don't know, like so many hours outside of school to kind of live your life and do what you want to do. So you're not really bothered too much about cluing yourself up with like the world around you, because you want to just one, get pissed, get girls or boys, whatever. Do you and just have fun, enjoy yourself when you're not in the education system. So you don't really have enough time. You're not really bothered about cluing yourself up about the world and politics, because it doesn't really affect you directly just yet, because you're training yourself to go out into the real world to when it will affect you. So one thing I wanted to say about the whole age range thing was that if in the education system, if we taught our kids to learn rather than to pass, it would mean that a lot of our young people will be a bit more clued up for the world outside of education. If they knew about taxes, if they knew about mortgages, if they knew about inflation, interest, like all this, all little bits and bobs.
Because even just to draw it back a second, like, because I like what you touched on there, but just the fact that, like, when you leave school, they've never taught you how the parliamentary system works in our own country.
No.
So how many people actually voting know, like, how it actually works as well?
No, exactly. So we're so bothered about like trigonometry and Pythagoras theorem when it won't help you at all in.
Or the vast majority of people, it won't help anyway.
Yeah. So like you said it yourself, as like out of 1 in 100 people, how many people is it going to help?
Yeah, like literally 1 out of 100 people probably will help.
So like, sorry, in 100 people, like one person's probably gonna help. So it's like 1% that we're wasting our money teaching Pythagoras theorem. So that 1% is gonna take it into the real world, when we could really be using it to clue our children up and clue our young people up.
Because they could choose to do that in higher education once they get to A levels or university or whatever it is.
Exactly. I understand teaching the basics. That goes without saying, but then give them the opportunity to do what they want to do and learn what they want to learn. Do you know what I mean? Because
so your point basically is then that you feel like kids would be mature enough to vote if they were taught in the right way from an early age.
Yes, because what happens is that they kind of go, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that, I do like this, I do like this, I do like this, and they explore that. And by exploring that and learning about it, it kind of sets them up for GCSEs to go into the subjects they want to be able to do and take further into the real world. And if that's the case, they learn and they get over it. They fail or succeed early rather than later, which means that we have a more mature audience from the ages of 16 to 18, or even say 14 to 18. I'm not saying people vote at 14, but what I'm saying is people are clocking on from an early age, so that time when they get to 16, they've matured to a basic standard where they can go, do you know what? I like this in the real world, and I think this is the decisions that we should be making. And then what will happen? It will have a knock-on effect. It will be a domino effect to the point where the older people at like 19, 20, they would have been doing this since they were 16. So they've learned a lot about the real world to go, do you know what? I think this is the way our society should be heading in direction-wise. So hence I want to vote for X, Y, Z.
Yeah, because just to like touch on what you're saying there, in the Brexit vote, I'm quite clued up on politics, but even me, I'm quite stumped as to how the European Parliament works, right? Or how the EU works.
Yeah.
So if I'm a bit stumped by it, 99% of people out there probably didn't really know enough about the EU to be voting on it. Which the whole EU referendum was another ridiculous thing, because obviously, like, not to like divert too much, but that was against the whole idea of like our a parliamentary system that we have in this country. So again, it went against hundreds of years of our own culture. But there you go. But my issue is, like, if people aren't even clued up on the EU like that, we should, like you were saying, we should be way more educated on it. You know what I mean? Before people were given a chance to take that vote. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with your point. The only kind of counterpoint that I would throw against that, it's all well and good to educate them, and I think it's fantastic what you're proposing, but how much of maturity comes just from pure life experience? You know, you could be educated as much as you want, but life experience is also a big factor in maturity as well.
Oh no,
and just
no,
the simple fact that
yeah,
you just haven't lived as long.
Yeah,
is going to kind of work against you.
Yeah, I agree. But what you're never gonna get. I'm not naive to the fact that you're never gonna get mature soldiers like rolling out at 16 just for clearing them up with all the right tools and stuff. Some of it is obviously down to life experience. However, by at least informing them and showing them all the cards on the table that's willing to be played, then at least then by playing them, they are already participating in some sort of life experience, because you're already giving them the choice to go forth into their future. You're not really giving them a choice when you go maths, English, science, art, literacy, English lit, drama, history, geography. You're basically saying these are the categories, and this is what you need to kind of learn, and it doesn't give them much wiggle room for anything else. So as soon as they leave the education system, they go into something that they want to do. Then they have to kind of learn that, and then go, oh, maybe this wasn't for me, and then that's them learning. That's already them kind of making their first real decisions in life, was once they leave the education system. When they go to sixth form, when they go to college, because then they pick what they want to do. And for me personally, that's already where it kind of starts. It's not big life experience, but it's already starting there, because you've already made a conscious decision of the subjects you want to take and go forth, because you're going, I want to do these for X, Y, and Z because I think I'll want to do this later on in life. Whereas if we got them to do this at an early age, let's say 14, for example, and gave them more subjects, I'm not saying let's pull 100 subjects out of the bag, but I'm just saying stuff that's more catered towards the norm of society that we're doing. Because let's be honest, we're not seeing mathematicians walking down the road. We're seeing people that work in bars. We're seeing like retail. We're seeing entrepreneurs, YouTubers, bloggers.
Mate? I know a ton of mathematicians. Like,
you roll with a gang, a bag of mathematicians,
gang, maths gang, right?
Maths gang, yeah, AB squared and all that shit, yeah. But that's what that
AB squared goes hard.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like,
yeah, no, I do get your point,
and the fact that obviously that once these kids are able to kind of pick what they want to be able to do in the future, then they are already kind of like learning about maybe this, because that's when they go, that was the wrong decision, me picking this, that was the wrong decision, me picking that, this was the right one. And then they kind of apply that thinking to the world around them, to decisions that are going to affect the world at large. So then the 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds will go, what I did back when I was 15, 16 was wrong. Maybe now I can switch up and apply this to politics and like where I want my country to go. Because this is why I think,
one of my issues really is just, out of every age demographic, 18 to 35-year-olds vote the least. So they vote less than any other age demographic. So if 16 and 17-year-olds were starting to vote as well, how many of them would actually bother to vote? And that is actually an issue. I feel like if I'm throwing like this demographic of people to vote, it's like, what's the point if like a small fraction of them are actually going to bother using it? Surely we should first be trying to like energize 18 to 35-year-olds to be using it. And then if enough 18 to 35-year-olds are energized to start using their vote, then maybe roll it out to 16 and 17-year-olds. But if so few 18 to 35-year-olds are voting, I don't know. It just seems a bit like, well, what's the point anyway? Sort of thing.
Do you know why? Do you know why? I'm just kind of hypothesizing here, yeah. But like, take 18-year-olds, 18 to 35-year-olds, yeah. Take that age demographic, yeah. 18 to sort of 25 is university for a lot of people, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they've jumped back into an education system where it's a difficult education system, because they're like, it's different from the one at secondary school, because now they're involving themselves with like sex, drugs, alcohol, partying, like
Yeah.
relationships, like learning new things. Some people learn to drive. Some people will like find out they want to go through this. Some people just want to study. And this whole like new way of living is going to again distract them for the world again around them outside. So around the outside. So basically, how are they ever?
I don't know if Eminem got into this conversation.
It didn't. So basically, how are they ever going to sort of be able to make that vote if they've just gone from one education system to another? They haven't had enough life experience outside that to kind of go,
But you're disagreeing with me now. That's the thing, mate.
Yeah, like I want to go into X, Y, Z. Now, if, for example, we had this thing where obviously 16-year-olds were allowed to vote now, what would happen is 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds around that age, they're very impressionable. They're always kind of worrying about what he's doing, what she's doing, like what they're doing, like where they're going.
Yeah.
Now, because they're in this bubble of like secondary school and they're all in like the little social groups, we've seen how like fads and like stuff going on like in that, like just stuff going on around them affects like a public. So like a craze would kick off, like planking, or I hate saying it, but the ice bucket water challenge and things like that, even though it's obviously for another reason. But when things kick off and a lot of people are doing it, everyone wants to jump on that bandwagon and get involved with it because it's cool and everyone wants to do it. So if you've got a group of like 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds in school and they're all talking and you presented them an opportunity of being able to vote, it will domino effect, and a couple of people will pick it up and go, "Oh, do you know what? This X, Y, Z," and it won't be that year where you're going to see a massive rise in like young people voting, but in 10, 20 years time, it will kind of become instilled in them, and they will see it as the norm. And then at that age of 16, they'll probably prep themselves from early for knowing that when they hit 16, they're going to be like, okay, right, now I'm legally allowed to vote. Everyone's talking about it. I need to kind of inform myself, because there are going to be people that are going to be filling themselves in going, okay, now I've been waiting for this moment to vote, telling their friends about it. Their friends are cluing themselves up. Their friends' friends are cluing themselves up. And then it's just going to snowball. And then people will start going, oh, I need to know what's going on because I look like a retard if Johnny and Sally know what they're talking about, but I ain't got a fucking clue because now I'm not the cool kid.
I hear what you're saying if you combine that with the fact of what you've already proposed, in the sense that we would be educating kids in a different way. We'll be teaching them about politics and how the system works from a younger... Well, we'll just be teaching them. They're not being taught that at the moment.
Yeah.
Then I agree, in that combination, I could see that happening to a degree. I don't quite agree with the idea of like a craze hitting off.
No. Not a craze. Not like, all the kids are running to the polling station.
If we're under the assumption that they would be under our proposed education system, then yeah, I could see more kids that age being engaged in politics.
Because
in response to your university thing, that's the problem though, mate. Like, if university students who've probably got more time on their hands than the average person can't be bothered to vote, then I just don't know how many 17 year olds will be bothered to vote as well. But
the problem is you need to start this thing early. You need to start at like say 14, 15, because if you distill it in them then
yeah, I do have some agreement there. I think we're both in agreement that if they're educated better, and if they're educated about politics, more would engage. So I'm more willing to extend the vote in that scenario. But in our current scenario, what we're living in now, and obviously we can't really change that system, then I just wouldn't be happy right now giving them the vote, if that makes sense, like in our current system. Because I just think, if you're not taught anything about politics, and then you're like, here's a vote at 16, it's almost like, how many of those kids are gonna read up outside of school about all of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not many. You know what I mean?
That is the issue. that's where like I'm kind of like, yeah, you got a point in there with that one, but I feel like I just feel like if you give them the right to have a vote at 16, you got to kind of do like a poll, like a survey, and go how many, and it has to be an honest one. You've got to kind of know and kind of see how many kids are gonna want to know now. Now they've been given this green card. How many are gonna go? Okay, I've got the pass. Now, what do I do? Because how many times have you been in a situation where you've met the requirements and you just do it because you meet the requirements, not because you want to, but you kind of go, oh, now I'm actually allowed to do this. I might as well see what all the fuss is about. You see what I'm trying to say there? Yeah. So that's... I see what
you're saying, because you've been given the right to do something, you feel like I might as well use it.
Yeah, and maybe.
But I would just reply and say that how many 18-year-olds are now being given the right to vote and actually bothering to vote? Do you know what I mean?
But that's what I'm saying. It's a domino thing effect. So the fact that it's 18, let's be honest, no 18-year-old goes, oh, banging, that's sick. Now I can go and run into the voting station and vote. You get nagged by mum, by dad, by aunt, by gran, but you won't do it for about 3 years, 3-4 years, if that, probably 2, 3, 4 years, and then you'll go, oh, it is effectively, because now I live in the real world. Now I live in the world of work, and now I see like how I'm getting screwed, and I want it to be a bit easier for me. So now I want to make that decision. Now I want to vote. Whereas if you kind of give that to them from 16, let's say some of these kids, these 16-year-old kids, because let's be honest, there's a gap year thing. So these kids, like, they take a gap year, then they do their stuff. Or some people just go straight into work as soon as they hit 16. They see how hard it is, how difficult it is, and they go, do you know what? Fuck all this shit. Like, this I'm getting screwed by this party, I'm getting screwed by that party, and then the party even proposes this, that, and the other. Then they're like, do you know what? This makes things a lot more easier for me and then they will vote at like 18 or 19. Because they've had the life experience, they've had the work, they've been out working. That's excluding my sort of proposal of like changing the education system and making them all kind of clued up at like 14. That's just saying a thing where kids that when they're 16 they go into work, like to people who don't want the education system that go straight into work, and then they go, this is affecting me in a negative way, I want to make a change.
Yeah, I agree that some would. I just don't. I just think it's going to be a small minority. That's where I go. Is it worth it when 18 to 35-year-olds are mostly voting anyway?
I think it is. I think it's pure in the fact that if you go to work at 16, that is your choice.
But kids aren't allowed to go to work with 16 now, are they?
Is that a thing? Is it changed? It's 17. You've got to go to sixth form and shit now. Yeah.
You've got to be 18 now before you leave school. Yeah.
Okay, I changed my argument.
Did it to massage the unemployment figures. Basically.
Okay, I changed my argument. Okay, cool. So then, what I will come with then is this: if you decide we allow people to have kids at 16, I'm not saying you are legally allowed to have a child, so therefore you are legally allowed to vote. Wrong. What I'm saying is, you having that child legally, you now have an obligation to look after and sort of bring this child into the world. Now, if you want to bring this child into this world, in this country, there must be reason for that. Otherwise, you wouldn't. Now, once you bring the child into this world, into this country, you then want to cater all your needs to the benefit of your child now, because you want obviously the best for yourself and the best for them. It's not going to be a thing instantly where you go, oh, that's it, I want to vote. But I feel like if something is really affecting you as a parent, you should be able to have some sort of say in how it dictates the future of your child. You should have some sort of say. I just feel, because I feel like you've now brought another life into this world and you're now voting for the future of that child. Personally, that's how I feel. And I feel like if you care enough, No, I would say if you care enough, I'll say that.
I would say the same issues of life experience and maturity come in at that stage. You've had a kid, but it's like doesn't mean you've had any more life experience. It doesn't mean you've got any more maturity.
No, fuck all that. Yeah.
How the country is to run.
No.
How to run the country.
No, of course.
That's what I'll personally say.
No, of course not. But for the mums and the dads that want a child, I know it's a bit retarded. No, not retarded. I know it's a bit far-fetched to say every 16-year-old plans a child at that age. But let's just say there are those mums.
For the ones that do.
The ones that do. I feel that they should be able to, if they're big enough and grown up enough to make that decision to bring a child into this world.
But no one says they are big enough and grown up enough. It's just things happen at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? 16 and 17-year-olds think they're more mature than they actually are, and everyone else is looking around being like, no, you're definitely not mature enough to be having a kid. But they think they are. So then, they have a kid, right? That doesn't mean... You know what I mean? It's just something that happened, but it's not necessarily a thing where it's like, oh, that was great. They had a kid at that age. If anything, they probably would have been better waiting to have a kid. I feel like there's very, very few people at that age who are ready to have children. But make that decision. But like at the end of the day, like you can't stop people that age having sex and. So what can you do at the end of the day? You can't. Some of them are going to have kids.
No, you can't stop them from having sex. Yeah, fair enough. But you can't stop a 14-year-old from having sex. So what? We lowered the age to 14 then?
Yeah, well, that's what you're saying then. By what you're saying then.
No.
Because you're saying, oh, shouldn't a 16-year-old be given a chance to have the vote because they want to have their child? They're now thinking about their child and their future. No, the government. Your argument. No. If a 13-year-old has a child, then she should be able to decide.
No. The government. No. Not by my argument. The government have gone. Children are allowed to have sex at 16. That's cool. And I'm like, what? Oh, that's irritating. Now that you've done that, surely now you're gonna have to make up some rules. Yeah. We'll give that 16-year-old. We'll give them a house. We'll put them on a house and register this, and obviously they'll get a house so they can look after their kid and stuff like that. We'll give them some benefits and stuff like that per child. And you're like, you're giving them all this shit, really? So you think they're mature enough to handle this? Yeah. They've got a kid now. They've got a kid, and you're like. So you're giving them a house, you're giving them money, you're giving them good hours, you're giving them all these benefits because they're mature enough? Because they're mature enough? You ask the government that question, the government go, well, we can't stop them from having sex. And you're like, so, okay then. So what about...
you can stop them from voting, can't you, at the end of the day?
You can stop them from voting. So then for me, it's the government kind of going... Oh, no, they're not mature enough, but they're going to have sex, so we might as well throw all these freebies at them then for having a kid because they brought a kid into this life. So then you've given them all these freebies, so what about being able to vote then? Because you're basically saying, yeah, they've had sex, they've had a kid, we'll give them all this shit to support them, but you won't give them something that's actually more beneficial, that will benefit them and their child's future in the long run, which is being able the power to be able to vote for a party.
Yeah, but I feel like it's not even that deep because it's like what they'll be 18 instead of 16 when they can first vote. You know what I mean? Oh well. I think hopefully by 18 they'll be more mature to actually know about what they want with their lives. Do you know what I mean? Rather than being 16, not knowing what they want to do.
Obviously, but then it's kind of like I'm just a bit like, do you see where I'm getting a bit confused? Where I'm just like, you can give, you can give them all this stuff.
But that's what I'm saying. But I feel like you're saying you're doing like a thing where it's like, well, they're allowing them to do this, so why can't you allow them to do that then? But
something for me, something's more beneficial.
You literally can't stop kids at that age having sex.
No, you can't
do it.
You can't.
But you can stop them from voting. So that's the big difference. I would say is one, you can stop them from doing, the other you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say was the big difference. But I don't think I can really add that much more to what I want to say about it. Personally, I think kids are just a bit, they need a couple more years before they're ready to make that kind of like decision on how the country should be like run or whatever. I'm not opposed to it completely. I think if we were to follow your ideas of changing up the school system and teaching them a curriculum where they knew more about the political system, where they knew more about taxes, where they knew more about just the world around them, then I'll be much more like, let's give them the right to vote, especially if more 18 to 35-year-olds were going out and voting and stuff with the new system that you wanted to implement. But in this current situation, I just, in good faith, I couldn't do it.
No, not now, not where we are now. I agree with you, but I feel like there needs to be some changes made. I feel like the 16-year-olds do deserve to be able to vote, but if that's going to happen, there's going to have to be some changes to allow this. So maybe bringing in things into school, like lessons into school, which kind of clue up our children about what's going on, and just it's not hard, because I mean we teach our kids about sex education at like 15, 14, because we know that like it's coming very, very quickly around the corner, so they need to kind of have an idea of what's going on. It's the same thing with voting. If you implement the voting at 16, then obviously there's going to be lessons where we kind of clue our children up in schools. Like, it happens all the time. So yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah.
All right, thanks guys. Check out the links below. Follow us on our various different social medias. Leave a comment, leave a like, and have a great day.
Sound.
Bye.